My uncle, a deaf old man, used to be a fisherman. Last year, he sold his boat and retired. Lucky timing, too, because if he'd waited until this year, well, things wouldn't have gone so well. Back in the day, he fished off the coast of Pingtung. When I was a kid, he'd tell me stories about the kind, simple fishermen there. If they found a body floating in the sea, they'd do a good deed. They'd bring it ashore, and the bigwigs at the Fishermen's Association would chip in for a simple memorial service. Then they'd bury the body in an unmarked grave at the cemetery by the coast in Donggang. Of course, that's not allowed anymore. Now, you have to report it to the authorities. Later, my uncle moved to Yilan and joined the fishing fleet in Nanfangao. The waters there, due to the currents, not anything to do with crime, don't see as many floating bodies as Pingtung's Dapeng Bay or Donggang. One year, on a clear, sunny evening, their boat was heading back to Nanfangao when they spotted something colorful bobbing on the water in the distance. The younger fisherman, inexperienced, thought it was just trash, but my uncle, with one glance, knew something was off. Sure enough, as the boat got closer, they saw it. A woman's body, her long hair fanned out across the water, dressed in red cloth. Her face was down. Strangely, most floaters are found that way. Her body swollen, limbs distorted. The patches of exposed skin were rotting, bone peeking through. My uncle said some of the crew thought it was bad luck, while others called it a stroke of fortune. There's this old rumor that bringing in a body can bring you wealth. But most of the crew leaned toward ignoring it or calling the Coast Guard to handle it, letting the boat head back to port. My uncle, though, had dealt with bodies before in Donggang. To him, encountering one was a kind of fate. He went on a passionate spiel, talking a mile a minute, and somehow convinced the crew. The captain agreed to bring the body aboard, a bold move for the simple folks of Nanfangao. Anyone who's handled a floater knows the smell is as bad as the bloated sight. You have to be careful too. The connective tissues, muscles, and fat are so decayed that if you pull too hard, the flesh might slough off, and thick, putrid liquid could splash you. That stench, it lingers for days, no matter how much you scrub. And there's a rule: you never flip the body over. If its first sight is you, it might follow you home. My uncle and a middle-aged temp worker were tasked with pulling the body up. The guy wasn't braver than the rest. He'd actually resisted at first. But with the captain out of the equation, he and my uncle were the only ones with enough experience to handle it. Reluctantly, he went along, and the retrieval went smoothly enough. But then, at the moment they lifted the body from the water, my uncle heard it. A laugh. A woman's laugh. On a boat full of men, out in the middle of the ocean, it sent chills down his spine. He turned to the middle-aged man for confirmation, but the guy looked stunned and swore he hadn't heard a thing. Something felt wrong, but my uncle hesitated to press further. The man's expression was off, uneasy. They exchanged a blank stare, and my uncle dropped it. They kept working, hauling the nets in silence, neither mentioning it again. The sun sank behind the mountains, the sky a battle of orange and purple, with deep blue hugging the horizon. In the distance, at the shore, boats preparing for nighttime squid fishing were testing their lights. My uncle's boat drifted slowly toward land. He said it felt more like floating than sailing. They'd reported the body, and soon the Coast Guard arrived to take it away. The evening sea breeze swept over them, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. They thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't that simple. When they reached shore, the head of the Su'ao Fishermen's Association and some local big shots were waiting. Nanfang Ao didn't see this kind of thing often, but the old-timers knew the drill. The crew disembarked, went through a quick ritual to ward off bad luck, offering incense, paying respects, that sort of thing. My uncle didn't share too many details about it. But one thing stood out. The middle-aged man's incense kept going out, over and over. Everyone was stunned. Lit incense rarely extinguishes like that. The man didn't say much, but he kept glancing around nervously, as if looking for someone. My uncle felt uneasy, but stayed quiet. After that, my uncle went home, leaving the others to deal with the boat. The next 2 months were unreal. Against all odds, in a sluggish fish market, my uncle's company hit a jackpot. The catches were bountiful, and his bonuses were huge, enough to help him buy his own boat later on. He'd partnered with a vendor to sell some premium fish at the market. Everyone thought he'd lose money since Yilan fish were so cheap. But then the Su'ao Tunnel opened, the market boomed, and fish prices skyrocketed. My uncle made a fortune. Now he's not even that old, but he sold his boat, then retired just before the oil prices spiked and the financial crisis hit. He got a great price for it. But what about the middle-aged man? He fell gravely ill shortly after that night, something with his liver. It was bizarre. My uncle said he died 6 months later from sudden, aggressive hepatitis. It was so abrupt. My uncle always told us to respect the dead. When he went to pay his respects at the man's funeral, the man's family, amidst their grief, asked him if anything strange had happened that night with the body. My uncle was shocked. Why would they ask that? They explained. After that night, the man came home feeling unwell and refused to go back out to sea. His family couldn't do much about it. He stopped working, started drinking heavily, getting drunk every day. Weeks later, he collapsed and was hospitalized. In the hospital, his family asked why he'd let himself spiral. Every time, he'd say he'd offended a water ghost. He admitted that when he first saw the body, he silently cursed it, hoping the boat wouldn't go near. But my uncle convinced the crew to retrieve it. During the process, he kept muttering curses under his breath, too scared to look directly at the body, only stealing glances. He told his family he was terrified, begging the spirit to forgive him, insisting he didn't mean to disrespect it. They said that after getting off the boat, he felt something following him. In the corner of his eye, he kept seeing a blurry figure, a long-haired woman in red, flickering, trailing him. The red was unmistakable, but whenever he turned to look, it vanished. That's why he was so jittery on shore, constantly looking around. It didn't stop there. At night, he'd sense the wet, long-haired water ghost lying beside him. While eating, he'd feel a cold, damp hand brushing his back. He started drinking to drown it out. But no matter how drunk he got, that blurry figure lingered in his peripheral vision. Even in the hospital, it persisted. He swore a hazy, red-clad, long-haired ghost stood by his bed. My uncle was floored hearing this. The man's family, tears streaming, insisted he'd gone mad from losing his job. My uncle just told them to rest and not think too much, then left. After learning all this, My uncle said he felt uneasy. He couldn't stop thinking about that laugh he'd heard. That night, he was terrified he'd see something too, or lose his mind. He even tested his peripheral vision, half expecting to catch a glimpse of something. Thankfully, nothing appeared. But from that day on, every now and then, he'd hear it again. The same woman's laugh coming from behind him. I was stunned when he told me this. My uncle said that's why he went deaf. I'd never known why. He explained that during a company break, he went diving near Turtle Island. Deep underwater, he suddenly heard that laugh again. Panicked, he shot to the surface too fast. His ears and chest seared with pain, and he blacked out. When he woke up in the hospital, both ears were gone, completely deaf. He chuckled as he told me this, saying his electronic ear helps now. But sometimes, he admitted, he turns it off. I asked, "So, you can still hear it?" He gave me a gentle smile. "Yeah, but I've gotten used to it over the years. It's coming from right behind you. Don't you hear it?"